Legend has it that once upon a time, all the kiln fires had been kept burning all day and all night just to create an enamel vase, but it was all in vain. The kiln began to overflow with streams of glaze glinting in the red-orange flame. The earth, captivated by the vision, softened and melted. At that moment, the most talented potter plunged into the blazing kiln. The burning flames were then resurrected. Infused with his soul, an enamel vase was born. But prior to that ancient legend, prior to that fine glazed vase ever made, was the inception of a tiny little speck of earth, brought into existence by the timeless, fated love and passion between the earth and sky. Buried deep in the clay mine, the tiny speck of earth was sleeping soundly inside the mother's womb. Mother, the creator. Mother, the warm embrace in the yin-yang harmony between the sky and the earth. Mother, the potter. Mother, the artisan's gentle touch on the four cosmic elements, earth, wind, water, and fire, to give life to her children. Mother, the sky, the earth, and the humans. In an ancient pottery village, raw clay was brought back from the mines. The wooden horses, jaw crushers, were hard at work, pounding away at it. The clay was mixed with water, sieved, and then deposited under the sun. The tiny speck of clay followed the Earth's 1,000-year restless heartbeat to be finally here. Dissolved in the fired glaze and nurtured in human hands, since the 70 of the previous century, at Minlam One Pottery Company, the tiny clay speck has morphed into dazzling ceramics. Culture, art, technology, experience, and craftsmanship are crystallized in the Earth-human cycle, a magical cycle in which the tiny speck of clay is given life and shape. From a distant past, beyond the reach of human memories, pottery, one of humans' earliest creations, has come into existence. Its story could have been taken directly from the pages of a fairy tale. The earth opens its heart. A grain of kaolin, a grain of feldspar, and a grain of quartz all make the earth's first drop of blood. The first crimson drop, the very first drop of blood formed inside Mother's womb. The embarkation of the tiny clay speck on a magical journey. The tiny grain of clay, the blood drop of earth, begins a life formation cycle. This quiet first step is filled with mystery, for in the tiny speck of dirt, almost invisible to the eye, there is enough of everything. In the murmuring silence of thunder and lightning, tossing and turning in the birthing of the earth, the child breathes its first breath inside Mother, and from the mystical boundlessness of the earth emerges the clay embryo, clay pug, a cherished wonder. In the process of coming to life, the child is gently molded into shape by the kneading hands of the goddess of birth. Listening to the faint heartbeat of the earth, the potter carves out a shape of life. Inside Mother's womb, the small blood drop diffuses and suffuses the child's veins. In the infinitely mysterious manner of the Creator, with great care and meticulousness, the little speck of earth is given its first shape. Its first living organism. Little by little, with each careful, loving touch of the pencil, comes the shape of what will become the lips of tomorrow, the eyes of today. Each gentle touch, Each fine line, trimming and carving gives it an embryonic shape from the vastness of motherly love. In the warm gyration of the potter's wheel, a legacy from an ancient pottery village, cylindrical pugs of clay are cut, pressed, molded, and shaped. The little speck of clay lies in the gyrating hands of the Creator in the mother's womb. One day it is given a tiny spark of fire for a heart. One day it is given lovely tiny fingers in the mother's womb. One day it is given a pair of eyes, soft like velvet. And one day its lips part into a smile. The mother visualizes the features of her child's face and imagines the child curling up and sleeping peacefully in her womb. Every minute that passes by, every hour that elapses, she waits for the first movements of the child. My little speck of earth, I caress, cradle you, and dream with you. Your first dream in my womb you will never remember, but the fragrance of the dream will stay with you for the rest of your life. One day you will recognize it as the best moment of your life. My little speck of earth, I breathe every breath for you, and with each of my breaths, you slowly grow into full form. My blood is given to the nurturing of your life. From my life, a new one is transfused into you. From the depth of the abyss to the peak of the mountain of life, I gather everything to give shape to you. From the blood overflowing in my heart. You are not just a speck of dust, though so small as to be invisible. You are my child. The entire world converges in you when I look at you and take your hands in mine, guiding you through your first steps of life. Each step you take forward is each step I fall behind. Exposed to a new horizon, brought into a new life, the little speck of clay knows not what shape it will take. Through narrow doors, step out square and round ones. In the flow of melted clay, the little speck of clay wanders into life. Basking in its first dream of life, translucent and pure, the little speck of clay no longer is a speck of clay. It has been reincarnated, infused with a unique fragrance, the fragrance of earth from time immemorial. When the potter's hands embrace earth, he follows the breathing pattern of the tiny clay speck. His heartbeats are in tune with the earth's, and the whole universe seems to stop its existence when man and earth become one. As a newborn child sees the first light of life in mother's rocking arms, sweet with the scent of milk, The tiny clay speck is given its life in the form of a ceramic ware just brought into life. The clay came from an age-old pottery village, with a heart ever swelling with memories of the first light of life. The day a mother leads her child to school for the first time is also the day the tiny speck is trained in the first stage of firing. The preliminary firing is like a mother's warm bosom, cuddling and preparing her child for the day she will take his hands and walk him to school. There, as the child will learn the first letter and experience the first punishment of his life, the tiny speck too will have to brace himself for training in the smoldering fire, like a child being trained to become educated and well-bred. A mother's lullaby, as it sings the child to sleep, molds the child's soul. Glaze, as it is absorbed into earth, forms the soul of the tiny clay speck. In days of old, glaze was carefully ground under heavy stones, pulled by buffaloes around a stone slab. And in days of old, glaze was blown onto clay, each coat sprayed evenly with the potter's breath. Like mother's lullaby onto a fairy tale that would enter into the child's sleep, the glaze infuses a life and a soul in the tiny speck. The child is her mother's flesh and blood. The lullaby and her loving care are all she has done for the child to grow up. Bathing in a stream of glaze which glistens like a river of light, the tiny speck is saturated with drops of glaze, like the stream of blood a child receives through a life cord that brings him to life and nurtures his soul. My little one, my dear tiny speck, I will take your hands and lead you into the world of old stories, stories told so long ago, yet still captivating. Stories of the ancients who sought rocks in the mountains and panned them for glaze. My little one, I will hold you and bathe you in the river of glaze. Being dipped in the glaze will give you the feeling of complete immersion, each speck infused with each drop of glaze. My little one, dip yourselves in this river for good things to come, like what you can learn between the words, between empty episodes in this life, so that the glistening river of glaze would overflow your soul. The little one has grown up, and many challenges are lying in wait ahead. The little speck of clay has also grown into a ceramic product, glazed and waiting to be baked. In the age-old pottery, a series of kilns were built from brick, from lower to higher ones, in accordance with the movement of fire. The red-hot flames are kept ablaze at all time. The little speck of clay is still burning in the strong flames, undergoing a training process. My little one, you are now a student, taking the first exam, facing innumerable challenges. The first testing flames are always the hottest. Fire can melt gold, but it can also crystallize tiny specks of clay into things of exquisite beauty. Each fiber of the earth stirs and moves, comes together, and then solidifies, each experiencing a seismic shock from within. Out of fire it is transformed into precious stone. Each drop of glaze is like a drop of blood. Fully glazed and heated, the porcelains are now ready for the decoration process. Their beauty, grand and gorgeous, or subtle and delicate, all comes into view at this moment. A student returning to his home village after achieving academic honors, he led the way on his horse, followed by his wife in a hammock. In a triumphant procession, the legend of the Dragon Lord and the Fairy Mother our pride over the birth origin of the Vietnamese. Here, the two sacred creatures are masterfully represented through the gracious and creative strokes of the brush. The body and the head are those of the dragons. The mouth and wings are those of the phoenixes. The phoenixes' long tails are like fairies' billowing gown, curving like lotus petals in the harmonious yin-yang union, reminiscent of lotus in blooming seasons. One Pillar Pagoda, Tehup Sunbeam Bridge, Tinmo Celestial Lady Pagoda, ethereal in the misty haze. The depth of soul and the simplicity of heart in the Vietnamese are fostered and cultivated. From there a character grows. The fragile brushstroke captures 1,000 years of history in one sketch. A touch of the brush on the glaze is the beginning of a heartbeat, a step into the infinity of freedom where every touch always feels like the first time. Always nervous and shaky. Gold and silver lines are invaluable, only in the hands of an artist who can capture the full gamut of human experience and emotions and bring them to life. A brushstroke has soul. It carries in it the mind and heart of the artisans, a petal from endless seasons of sunlight, resting on the glossy glaze and bringing with it some fleeting sunshine. A pink lotus bud with thin veins on its leaves, like a child's feet, tiptoes into a glittering life. And eyes looking down, capturing the joy of the world in silent flames. When the artist invests his whole being into the tip of his brush, all shapes and colors come alive, singing their songs. In the long brushstrokes, the little speck of clay continues to perfect itself, like a student burning midnight oil, seeking beauty and wisdom in life, and awaiting new challenges. My little one, now that you have received the beauty of life, let the beauty within you shine, and the restless flames kept burning days and nights, the shape and color of the little clay speck, together with its soul, go through firing one more time. Fire enriches colors, sharpens the lines, enhances the contrast between shadow and light. It enlivens the soul and highlights the lustrous gold and silver. In the burning flames, gold and enamel find their true beauty, shining brightly and eternally, like a student gaining strength and maturity through challenging exams. The little speck of clay is now richly imbued with gold and silver in their most splendid colors. The refined clay and the glaze glitter in the flame light. The path of life sometimes is wide open and smooth, sometimes narrow and full of obstacles. The obstruction hinders, yet it shakes the mind and elevates the character. The little speck is now ready to face any challenge. The little speck has now come into full life. Perfect, beautiful, and pure. No stains, no spots can stay on the glossy glazed surface. A stream of water washes everything away. My little one, glazed the ceramics is virtue to the soul, untainted, pure, always. Earth withers, like a mother giving all her life for her child, to be born and to shine. On the day of glory, the triumphant student returns to his village after achieving academic honors. He leads the way on his horse, followed by his wife carried in a hammock, but there seems to be no sign of his mother. The joyful day you come into being, there is no sign of mother. I want to hold your hand at that moment. Though my hands bring you no season of spring, nor do they carry the golden paint of the brush, you will recognize the fresh smell of earth. Keep it as my last gift for you, as my eyes will follow you on your life path, just as I do your first dream. Pure, translucent, and radiating with brightness, deep and gentle like a lullaby, or surprisingly simple in the dragonfly spreading its wings against the golden yellow. Anyone, anywhere, would find their hearts skipping a beat when unexpectedly coming upon this touch of simplicity. The Vietnamese essence is found in a water jar-shaped teapot, in the lid shaped like the farmer's conical hat, and in an intimate entwining of two sacred creatures. Lifting a bowl of rice or offering a cup of tea to one's guest, the Vietnamese essence suffuses one's house and revives one's remembrances of old memories. The brightness of colors, the sparkling of the glaze, all disappear into nothingness, as suddenly as the chiming of a bell dying into silence. Mr. Lee Ngọc-Min's philosophy lays at the heart of all creative productions. 4 negatives, not constrained by time, not constrained by border, not constrained by gender, and not constrained by age. 4 positives, with culture, with art, with style, and with soul. It all starts with his first gentle touch of the earth. The soul of the earth finds its echo in the spirit of rustic simplicity and hidden charm of an ancient village life. The toad looks up from the depth of the enamel painting. At the raindrops or the sunlight, as delicate as a wisp of passing breeze, subtle and fervent as a sigh of passion that is the quality of our glazed ceramics. Enamel is the heart and soul of our products, the light that emanates from within, dissolving itself in the glazed clay, dissolving itself in the lotus bathing in the naked night. The white glossy color of the glaze is reminiscent of a bright sunlit afternoon, punctuated by the crowing of a cock, a rural marketplace shimmering in a fine cloud of dust, humming with the sounds of women's chatter. The soul of the Vietnamese bowl of rice makes its way into Thăng Long enamel bowl, reminding us that each grain of rice equals a bead of sweat and a drop of tear from the Vietnamese hard at work. 1 pillar pagoda, Huê Văn Pleiades constellation pavilion, villages and towns, river quays, bustling with voices and laughter. The Vietnamese bowl of rice flying on the wings of the dragon and the fairy. Thăng Long enamel bowl, a rare beauty of the Vietnamese porcelain at the 1000th anniversary of Thăng Long. In an instant, the little one shines forth. In an instant, from the vastness of the earth and sky, the little clay speck is brought into the fire. In the midst of earth and sky, it is brought into the kiln, rotating in the rhythm of earth and fire, joyful over the soundless singing of brick turned into glaze, and of bone ashes metamorphosing into new glorious shapes. On the cusp between form and formlessness, in the midst of glaze, fire, and colors, does a tiny speck of earth carry an unbearable lightness of being? There's a line from a children's song that goes, "Specks of dust, specks of dirt, we fall back to earth." An old story has it that once, to protect the timeless beauty of their craft against appropriation and the danger of annihilation, an entire village agreed to destroy the most treasured glazed ceramics after lighting up a fire and joining in a drinking spree. From dust, return to dust. Then new glazed bowls and cups quietly come back into life, sparkling and splashing with wine. Then came time when they were again smashed to pieces. This cycle of creation and destruction goes on and on, as solid as when the clay hardens into stone, and as fragile as the stream of glaze poured into the timelessness of beauty. The pottery makers, carrying the secret of the trade and the loyalty to the earth and fire, remained silent, a smile quietly breaking on their lips, while they are in the middle of a drinking party, where the fragrance of earth mingles with the smell of fresh clays. Fragile, precious ceramics. It's a call on us humans to preserve their presence among us.